Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So this week, let's talk about frame rates. What is the correct frame rate that you should be shooting in? Are you guys using 24 frames per second? Are you using 25? You shooting 50 or 60, 100 or 120? Do you even know what those frame rates are used for in post-production, especially? I think the first thing that we need to establish is your country that you are living in. What are the standardized broadcasting language? Some countries the language is or the standard is NTSC, and in other countries you'll find the broadcasting standard is PEL. So I'm in South Africa. So in South Africa, our standard is PEL. If you go to countries like United States of America, they use NTSC. All right, so what does that entail? Obviously, NTSC goes along with your 24 frame rates per second, whereas PEL countries we work on 25 frames per second. So might be that some of you did not know this information. So this is what this video is all about, to just enlighten you guys in terms of maybe it is that you've been shooting wrong all along. Maybe you shot in 24 or you shot in 25. What is the difference really? Is it a problem if you shoot in a different frame rate? Well, when it comes to television broadcasting, like I said specifically, when it comes to broadcasting, I mean, let's say you work on a music video, right? And you want that music video to play on broadcasting channels, like your MTV or Channel O, whatever the case may be. Those broadcasting television channels, they've got specific guidelines, requirements. I mean, you can go and check on their websites. Do yourself a favor, go and check on MTV's website and just check what the requirements are for, if you shoot a video. They will highlight specifically and tell you that they want their videos to be in 25 frames per second. Whereas, like I said, if you go to USA, obviously they use 24 or in some cases 30 frames per second. But now, why 24 and why 25? Well, like the industry professionals are saying, it's more to get the cinematic look when you shoot. You understand? I mean, obviously, if you shoot in a higher frame rate, you will find that sometimes your videos might look more video-like than movie-like. So they've established that 24 frames or 25 frames is the best suitable frame rate to shoot in if you want that cinematic film look, right? But now, when should you use different or other frame rates, like, well, in the case of PEL, 50 frames per second, or NTSC 60 frames per second, or 100 frames per second, or 120 frames per second? When should you use that? Basically, those frame rates, guys, are only, well, the higher the frame rate, basically, the more frames you have, the better or the smoother your slow motion will be. So it's advisable if you shoot, maybe if you want a scene to be a slow motion shot, do not, and this is just my opinion, and I mean, obviously you guys can go research this and check for yourself, but it's not advisable if you want to have slow motion in a particular shot, and now you shot that shot in 25 frames per second. You're gonna have some some defects that's gonna happen on your video because there's not enough frames to play with. You understand what I'm saying? So it'll become jittery or whatever the case may be. But I'll show you guys exactly. We'll go to some of the clips that I shot today to show you guys exactly what I mean by that. So it's advisable, the more frames you have, the smoother your slow motion will be. Alright, so in the case of 50 frames per second or 60 frames, you can get some relatively great slow motion footage, but also please be cautious not to slow down too much. which I'll show you guys exactly now in post-production, because you can also have those jittery kind of defects that you don't want in your videos. And obviously if you shoot in maybe 100 frames per second in the case of PAL, or in NTSC 120 frames per second, obviously now you have more room to play with, and you can even make your footage even more slower than you normally would with 50 or 60 frames per second. So those are the things that I think you must really look out for whenever you guys are shooting. Make 100% sure that you're shooting the correct frame rate. So like for standard video like this, I'm shooting this currently in 25 frames per second. Like I said, South Africa, we're using the PAL broadcasting language. All right. So I shot a couple of clips. I want to take you and show you exactly what I mean, and how it looks, and how you can slow down footage, and what you should do. All right. So let's go. All right. So here I have footage that I shot today. This is my daughter. Her name is Cassie. And so the first footage I want to show you guys is, this is what I shot in 25 frames per second. So I'm just gonna play it back normal speed, and you guys can see I've muted the audio, obviously, so we don't have any disturbances in that regard. So let me just play back this footage, and you guys can see exactly. So this is your normal, your normal footage that you would shoot. But now let's say we want to slow this down, and this is now exactly what I want to show you. I'm going to slow it down to, let's say, 50% for now. Let's just say 50%. Now let's look at the playback. Is it smooth? Is it something that you feel you guys can work with when you put your work out? Let's play it back and see. As you can see, the movement of the ball is not that smooth, right? Let's go to a next clip. The next clip I shot in 50 frames per second. So I'm going to slow this down. Let me just play it. Obviously, with 50 frames per second or 60 frames per second, you will still have audio in your videos. But the moment you shoot a higher frame rate, like 100 or 120 frames per second, unfortunately, you will have no audio. So those are just things that I'm mentioning, so you guys can be vigilant of. So I'm gonna play this back normal speed. All right, as you can see, although it's shot in 50 frames per second, it still plays back normal speed. Right, so let's slow it down to the same as the previous one. Let's say 50 frames per second. I'm gonna play back, and you guys can check. I think let's go to the section where she has the ball in her hand. So I'm playing it back, and now I want you guys to look specifically at the smoothness of the ball movement. Alright, so let's play it back. To me, that looks much smoother than the 25 frames per second. Let's play this back. You see those jittery kind of effect? That is not what you guys want. So like I said, guys, please be very cautious when you shoot your videos. You have to plan ahead. If you know that you want specific scenes to be in slow motion, you have to shoot those scenes in a slow-mo frame rate, or a higher frame rate, which is 50 or 60 or 100 or 120 or even more. So this one, let me just play it back again. You can see it's much smoother. All right. So I want to go back to the first scene, and let's just get this back to let's say 100 again. So it's back to normal speed, right? Just playing normal speed. Go to where she has the ball in her hand. All right, so now I want to slow it down even further. So let's say I want to go down to 20%, and this is a 25 frame rate footage. So I'm going down to, I want to slow it down to 20%. So let's see exactly what it does when I play it back. Can you guys see? Can you even see what it does to the footage here? Check the ball. See what it does there. That's not what you want in your footage, guys. Believe me, that's not what you want. So I'm just gonna undo that, take it back to normal. So then I'm gonna take the 50 frames a second footage, and let's just go. It's now on 50, so let's take it down to, let's say 30%. Let's make it the same. Let's say 20%. So let's play back and see what it looks like. I think this looks much better than, you know, the 25 frames. There's no really, you know, heavy defects, but I would say 20% on a 50 frame rate is a bit much. So I would go, at least I would go to, let's say, I would say, to be on the safe side, let's stick to 50%. That's just, you know, my opinion, guys. All right, so the next clip, let me just take this back to 100 here. 100%, so that was our normal speed. The next clip I shot, this was in 100 frames per second. Right, so like I said, remember, like I said, the moment you're gonna shoot higher, like in, you know, your 100 or 120 frame rates per second, obviously you're gonna have no audio. So that's just something that you guys must be very, very cautious of. You're not gonna have any audio, so you're gonna have to kind of, especially when you're shooting and people are actually singing or rapping to the beat of the song. It's gonna be difficult, because now you're gonna have to kind of you know, sync it in your own way. You understand? Because there's no audio to really work with. So just be very cautious when you guys are shooting slow motion. I would say maybe if you want to really shoot on these high frame rates, like your from 100 upwards, you should really use it maybe in most cases for B-roll shots, you know, just something you can use to insert here and there, and not specifically where an artist is singing or rapping or whatever the case may be. So like I said, my opinion. All right, so I'm gonna play this back quickly. As you can see, it's already in slow-mo. Right, so that's how it comes from the camera, straight from the camera. So now let's see if I wanna now slow this down. Let's go to maybe 40%, right? Let's just see if there's any strange defects in the footage if I play it back. Alright, so let's play back. That looks super nice to me. That looks super nice. But now let's say we want to slow it down to even 10%. I just want to give an example. Let's play it back. That's super slow. But now obviously you can see there is a little bit of, I would say this is too slow. But you know, I still think it's worth working with. You can maybe work with that kind of footage. But yeah, I would never really go as low as 10%. I wouldn't really go as low as 10%. Alright, so I'm just gonna put it back at 100%. Now, the other thing that you guys must be also vigilant of, or take into consideration, whenever you bring footage, especially when you shot higher frame rates like 50 or 100 frames per second, it's advisable, guys, you know, to still maintain that a cinematic kind of look. I would suggest that you guys always put your footage in a 25 frame rates per second timeline or sequence, or even a 24 if you shot in 24 frames per second. So rather put it in that timeline or sequence, then it'll be much easier, when you slow your footage down, that's in a higher frame rate, it still have that cinematic kind of look to it. So I'm going to show you exactly where you guys can do that. So remember, the first clip I said is a 25 frame per second clip, right? So I've changed the sequence settings to 25 frames per second. So whatever I put in the timeline, right, it's gonna obviously fall within those frame rates, right? So then you still maintain that cinematic look. I don't know if you guys can notice that if I switch between these clips, can you see what it does in terms of the color? Now bear in mind that these clips were color graded and color corrected exactly the same, right? There's absolutely no difference in terms of color correction and color grading. So look again, what do you guys notice? What's happening to the footage if I switch from this one, which is 25 frames per second, to this one which is 50, or even to the one that's 100? What do you guys notice? You see a difference in the color. Exactly. The first clip, which is 25 frames per second, guys, you will see there's more color depth in the footage than this one. And there's a simple reason for that. The first clip, the 25 frames per second clip, was shot in 10-bit. Your second clip was shot in 8-bit. The second and the third clip was shot in 8-bit. Now, why have I decided to shoot, different bit rates? Obviously, it all depends on the type of camera that you guys have. If your camera allows you to shoot in 10-bit, wow, obviously great. I think that's now the kind of standard that everyone is moving towards, besides RAW. So 10-bit, it gives you more room to play with in terms of your color. It gives you more color depth. It has more colors than your 8-bit footage, right? So my camera, I shot this clip internal 10-bit. Unfortunately, with the higher frame rates, your 50 frames and 100 frames upwards, it does not have the option to shoot 10-bit internally. What you can do is, especially when it comes to the 50 frames per second, if you have an external or a monitor, right? External monitor, like your Atomos Ninja V specifically, or I think any Atomos series of products might work. I don't know, the Ninja Inferno. I think all of those, they've got those options. But Atomos specifically has the option where you can shoot externally. You can record 10-bit on your monitor, right? So I've got the Atomos Ninja V monitor, which is a 5-inch monitor, but very nice. So unfortunately, I have not shot this, on the monitor. So everything was done internally on the camera. So that's why you have those color shifts. You can clearly see that the one looks much better than the 8-bit, right? If you feel like it, please guys, go and invest in some of those products. I'm not here to promote Atomos. I'm just saying this is what I have, this is what I use. And if you want to maintain that color depth in your footage, if you want to maintain that 10-bit look, then Atomos, especially the Ninja V, those are some of the products that can really offer you that solution. So yeah, those are the differences. And then I think the last thing that I really want to focus on, guys, is something that I think that we should talk about coming next week, is maybe in what profile should you really shoot your footage. Should it be in neutral profile, or it depends on your camera. So I don't know if you guys are using Canon or Sony or Panasonic or Nikon. I don't know what the different profiles are that they offer on the camera itself. But what do you guys normally shoot in? If you guys can maybe just let me know in the comments below, what profile do you guys normally shoot in? Then I can take that and maybe just work, give you guys a couple of pointers or a couple of ideas in terms of what I think is best to shoot in the next video coming next week. So this particular footage, obviously this is now after the color correction and the color grading, but this footage was shot in a log profile. But I'll go in detail in terms of what it is, what the advantages is, etc., etc. So I just want to play you guys back. I just want to show you guys how this footage looked before I even started color correcting or color grading it. Alright, so let's take a look. So as you can see, it's a very flat kind of a profile, and I'm just going to show you how we got from here to that. So yes, guys, I think that's something that we can really talk about maybe coming next week. Talk about different not frame rates, sorry. Yeah, busy with frame rates at the moment. Talk about color profiles in your camera. What would work best for you? So let me know, what camera do you guys have? Then I can do my research and check exactly what would work the best for you to bring out the best of color in your videos when you do your color correction and your color grading. All right, so guys, thank you once again. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Please invite your friends to subscribe to the channel. Please don't forget to hit that notification bell so you guys can be updated on future upcoming videos. You'll get a notification via your email address whenever a video goes live. And please give us a thumbs up. Until next week, guys, please stay safe. Remember, we shall overcome this coronavirus pandemic through prayer. Stay safe, guys. Stay at home. Love you. Peace.